Klamax. These two very specific patented extracts, which, as Rajen pointed out, they're called Clamine and Afamax. But apart from the names, it's two extracts that concentrate some of the most fundamental molecules of the algae, which I will talk about briefly, and that for the first time, we actually with iGalen we put together in one unique product, Klamax. And frankly, we were getting results that, I mean, I've seen many amazing results with the individual extract on its own, on themselves, in their own specific areas. But it seems that putting them together like we've done this time, has even enhanced even further the type of results and amazing results that we're getting. So I think this is very important to clarify, because treating the product just as Klamax algae or comparing it with, chlorella, spirulina, whatever, I think creates a little bit of a downplaying of the product. Also, because if we treat the product as just Klamax algae, you can buy Klamax algae for $10 anywhere. So I would be very careful in presenting it as just as Klamax algae or AFA or whatever. These are two very specific extracts. So let me say exactly what these extracts are. Afamax is an extract of the fraction of the algae that concentrates mostly its phycocyanins. Phycocyanins are the blue pigment of all the cyanobacteria. Okay, this is a difficult word, which means the bacteria. Cyano is the blue color. So the kind of blue bacteria, but are the bacteria that do the photosynthesis. They are photosynthetic bacteria. They're the first form of life of the planet, born 3 billion years ago, according to current science. They live in water. In particular, Klamax algae lives in this, grows wild in this lake in Oregon. So has certain nutritional characteristics as a whole algae, which are very interesting. All the vitamins, 73 minerals, and essential fatty acids and so forth. And some of these nutritional properties remain in the extracts, of course, but the extracts are not specifically, for nutritional purposes. And so again, what are these phycocyanins? These phycocyanins are these blue pigments which have been studied now for about almost 30 years, showing incredible, very, very high, very, very deep properties at the level of antioxidant activity, antioxidant protection of our cells, anti-inflammatory, very high anti-inflammatory activity, anti-proliferative activity, as they say, as it is said, that is preventing cancer formation and cancer development and so forth. And all these studies were actually done at the beginning on the phycocyanins from spirulina. Why? Because of course spirulina is much more available. It's everywhere in the world. It's cheap to produce. It's cheap on the market, and so many scientists have started making extracts of the specific molecule which is called C-phycocyanin, which is a subunit of the big molecule that is the whole phycocyanin. And all these studies actually apply also to our extract, to Afamax, because the phycocyanin of AFA, it does actually include C-phycocyanin, this submolecule. But the AFA phycocyanin also have a further extra submolecule, which is called phycoerythrocyanin. Sorry for all these names, but it's essentially another component of the phycocyanin, which actually contains another pigment which is purple, violet. In fact, it's called phycoviolobilin. And so whatever it is, given this different structure, we've proven that the phycocyanin from AFA concentrated in this extract, which are up to 200 times more powerful in terms of antioxidant activity relative to the phycocyanin from spirulina. So when we started testing and studying this phycocyanin on their own as alpha-phycocyanin in this Alpha-Max extract, which, just to make clear what it concentrates, the regular algae, AFA, contains about 5-6% phycocyanin. This extract contains 25 to 30% of phycocyanin. That is, it's 5-6 times increase the concentration. That's why it's also important, to make clear that it's an extract and not just regular algae. So when we went and test these phycocyanins, we actually found that we have a study published in 2010 that actually proves that is the most powerful antioxidant molecule among all natural molecules. 1,000 times more powerful than vitamin C or glutathione, and 40-50 times more powerful than other important antioxidants like the polyphenols like quercetin and so forth, and catechins and so forth. So it establishes itself as a very, very powerful antioxidant molecule. And also we've done tests on the anti-inflammatory activity. And again, the results we obtained in terms of anti-inflammatory activity, have been unmatched. Not only because, like in vitro studies where it shows that, the activity is superior even to the pharmaceutical drugs without the side effect, but also because when we went to test it in animal or human studies, we've always had results that were never obtained with anything else. So very, very powerful anti-inflammatory activity. And since all these things, they all go together. In other words, usually when you have high antioxidant, you have high anti-inflammatory, and you also have anti-proliferative activity, anti-cancer, because essentially, when you block inflammation, you also block some of the pathways that are used for cancer to grow. We have also amazing results on anti-proliferations because we actually managed to get the complete inhibition of cancer cell proliferation or cancer cell metastasis with 90 to 100% inhibition with very, very low quantities at what is called at the nanomolar level. That is, a millionth of a gram. This is also very important because when we compare it to other substances, again, we're talking about thousands of times more powerful than other substances like quercetin that I mentioned, or similar polyphenols. And as I posted recently, because I did a search, about 1,000 times more powerful in these studies on inhibition of cancer cell proliferation than the cannabinoids. This is actually a very simple comparison. The same study on the inhibition of cancer cell metastasis was done with one of the most powerful cannabinoids for cancers, and at the same dosage of 100 nanomolars, actually, while our phycocyanins of the Alpha-Max inhibited the proliferation about 90-95%, the cannabinoid stopped at 70%. And to reach that further echelon of 90-95%, which is the most difficult part to achieve, they actually had to increase the dosage 1,000 times. That is moving from the nanomolar to the micromolar or even I don't remember now, but I think micromolar, which is 1,000 times more concentration. So very, very, very powerful activity. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
I think normally people tend to describe AFA as a stem cell releaser or stem cell activator or something like that. How would you describe it? How would you help our distributors describe this to others? How would you like us to sell this idea of AFA expert in terms of stem cells? Because stem cells are very hot right now, so everybody's latching onto it. We can do more than that, but how do we start?
I mean, clearly what happened is that when you put together the two extracts, you do have an activity on stem cells that is, kind of 360 degrees. I just wanted to point out that one of the amazing properties of the product come certainly from stem cells, because many of the results that you've mentioned, hair regrowth and nails and concussion that improves quite rapidly and so forth, they're all related to stem cell activity, no doubt. But there's again much more than can be used. One is that the other extract, clamine, it's very, very powerful at the neurological level. We have studies on depression, anxiety, ADHD, which is another area I think that is a very big concern and very spread out. We're just setting now a further study on autism, which should start within this year. And as was mentioned before, the key element here is phenylethylamine, which is both, it's a general neuromodulator. It modulates all the neurotransmitters, and so it kind of reactivates all the neurological activity. But we discovered recently that has actually very, very powerful immunomodulating activity. All the immune cells have receptors for phenylethylamine, for PEA, the molecule of love, as it has been defined, because we produce it endogenously in our own body when we are happy and when we're in love. So it has receptors in all the immune cells, and it activates all the immune cells. It modulates. It's not an immunostimulator. This is important. It's an immunomodulator. Now, this is actually one of the links with stem cells, because stem cells and immune cells are very similar. They're very close to each other. They come from the same sections of the body, the bone marrow, and they share similar mechanisms of release and migration. So we believe that phenylethylamine might play a role also directly on the release of stem cells. What we know right now, so far, the data we have is that there's a combined, again, activity of the two extracts. Why? Because phycocyanins actually have been proven to activate one mechanism that stimulates the release of migration of fibroblasts. Fibroblasts are actually the stem cells of the skin. Many of the results that people are reporting on, in a few weeks, the skin is changing, or I've seen people saying that scars are disappearing and things like that. They are certainly due to this fibroblast activity, and the way in which the phycocyanins seem to stimulate the release of fibroblasts. It's related to a special mechanism which involves internal enzymes. One is called urokinase, which stimulates metalloprotease, which breaks down the niches. Stem cells are kept in kind of little sachet within the tissues, the bone marrow or the mesenchymal tissue, and with age, particularly, this ability to release stem cells slows down. So they remain trapped inside and they don't go to where they have to go. So through this mechanism of activating the endogenous enzymes, these niches are broken down and the stem cells are released. Of course, the mechanism as a whole is even much more complex, but this is the fundamental way in which phycocyanins do the activation of somatic stem cells. On the other hand, we have another study, because essentially, let me say that stem cells, there's been a few things about stem cells. Of course, there's embryonal stem cells, the stem cells of the embryo, which of course are very, very active because of the newborn, before being born, as an amazing growing activity, and so has to build all the organs, and that's what the embryonic stem cells do. But at the moment you're born, you don't have anymore these embryonic stem cells. They're called adult stem cells. And adult stem cells were not considered very much until, possibly 20 years ago. But now more and more we're discovering that adult stem cells are actually a potential key to recovering health in, all the neurodegenerative, all the general degenerative diseases. And adult stem cells, there are many types of them. They're throughout the body, but the major ones are what they call the hematopoietic stem cells, the ones that rebuild all the immune system and they stay in the bone marrow. The mesenchymal stem cells, again, which are the most diffused in the body, and the neural stem cells, the stem cells that rebuild all the neurotransmitters and tissues and brain, and they're actually produced in the brain, and then they circulate through the body. So we've said that phycocyanin have this activity, general activity on release of somatic stem cells, so hematopoietic, mesenchymal. And we found through another studies done with mice that clamine, the second extract, which as I said has just general neurological and immunological properties on its own, actually activates a very powerful release and actually production, not just release, of neural stem cells. This is an important concept because we're not talking about just the release and migration, of which I will say something briefly soon relative to the migration. But we're talking about the fact that clamine seems to be actually intervening and at promoting the creation of new stem cells. Because what we found in this study on mice that was done a few years back, that besides the mice becoming super smart and his learning ability, the learning ability of the mice going through the roof, when the brain was analyzed, they found this incredible increase of erythropoietin, EPO, which in the brain, which you might know because it was used by sport people as a doping agent back 20 years ago, and but they discovered that actually in the brain there's a specific type of erythropoietin which is typical of the brain, and the brain, when produces erythropoietin, erythropoietin becomes the precursor of all the neural stem cells. It goes and stimulates the new growth of neural stem cells in the brain, and that's why, for instance, we had some reports already in these first few months of use of Klamax regarding concussion, because EPO is exactly what is activated by our body, by our brain, when there is a concussion, when there is an stroke. In order to repair the lesion created by the concussion or the stroke, the EPO, if in a healthy body, in a very healthy body, is recreated to go and repair the lesion, right, and create and generate the stem cells that repair the lesion. And we've seen this with the mice. There was an increase of 500% in the production of erythropoietin in the brain. And what was most amazing is the fact that there wasn't just a higher production, much higher production of erythropoietin in the brain. There was an increase in the erythropoietin receptors in the brain, which means the product in a short time had actually rewired the brain, changed the plastic structure of the brain, helping the body, the brain to generate new receptors for erythropoietin, which is, quite an amazing result.
Which is very amazing, absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Dr. Stefano, the most common query I get is, how do I take Klamax? Do I take it on an empty stomach? What time do I take it? Can I take it with juices?
Right.
How long before I take food? Maybe you want to enlighten us.
Right. I think in the end, I'll give my answer, of course, but I think it's important that you experiment and find your best, the way you feel best about taking it. Personally, I would say that if you're a generally healthy person who just takes it for, energy, well-being, general reparation, and mental energy, and so forth, one dose is probably enough, and you might want to take it maybe, half a dose twice a day. That would be my suggestion. Don't take one dose all at once. Take it divided in 2 parts. In this case, 2 grams in the morning, 2 grams in the afternoon, or do as Rina does. Put it in whatever dose you want in a bottle of water that you drink throughout the day. Maybe you don't want to dilute it too much. You don't want to put it in a liter of water, but half a liter or 250 ml or whatever it is, and drink it throughout the day. But generally, this is what I would do with a normal dose. If you have some serious problems and you need a higher dose, or you just want to experiment with higher doses, regardless if you have deep health problems, you may want to increase the dose. At that point, what I would do again, I would do half a dose, maybe 4 times a day, or in very, very serious cases, even 6 times a day, distributed throughout the day. This is because, for one fundamental reason, which the absorption of the product is very high, because there's also the format in which it is. You drink it, there's sublingual assimilation, there's a better assimilation in the body. So already half a dose is effective, and distributed throughout the day, it keeps the effect, all through the 24 hours, which, at the immune level, at the anti-inflammatory level, at the neurological level, because many of these effects actually have been seen to, let's say, being activated for 3-4 hours, right? And then, the release of immune cells, and probably stem cells is the same, as far as we know, they migrate from the bone marrow or from other areas into tissues, and they do it for, like, say, 3 hours, and then they go back. So the possibility of doing it, having a dose that does that, distributed throughout the day, or at least morning and afternoon, keeps a much more continuous effect, which is important. In terms of what you take it with, if we've done our best, and I think we were quite successful in making a product that is, likable. Most people that I see, they like it straight away in water. But if you have problems that, you don't like it, you can, put it in yogurt, you can put it in fruit juice, you can mix it, even with food. Certainly, ideally would be to take it in a liquid on an empty stomach. That's the top choice. But if that's not possible for any reason, it's still okay to take it, with maybe some yogurt or some light food, whenever you want, or at a meal and so forth.
Right. So the dosage starting would be half a scoop twice a day. And then after a while, you maintain it half a scoop a day. And then if you have issues with your health, then you go up to 2 scoops a day, 8 grams a day, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so 2 grams 4 grams when you start, maybe the first 2 weeks, and then it goes down.
Or maybe a month,
and then 2 grams a day subsequent to that. And then, but if you have a therapeutic problem, whatever it is, then you tend to go 8 grams a day.
Or even 12. I mean, that depends. Yeah, what I want to stress is the fact that, you don't have to go that high, but there's no problem in going very high. You could take, like the whole bottle in one day, and you just be, feel great, but, nothing particularly strange would happen.
Right. So there are no known side effects, yeah?
No, there's no known side effects, and again, there's no limits in the quantity you can take. I would say that, once you've achieved, personally, I would suggest that possibly, at least for a month, if you take, like, a regular dose, that would be ideal. And then, if you feel that you're fine, and you just want to maintain, even 2 grams a day is probably enough. But experiment, play, and see what happens with your body. Be
right.
aware of what happens with your body.
Now, so I think the key point you made today is this is not just climate algae. This is not just AFA. It's a combination of AFA extracts, which are amine and Alphamax to give you Klamax, and
Right.
far superior than anything out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now, the other thing I wanted to comment very quickly, Dr. Stefano, is the Klamax Lake. It's almost unbelievable, the environment there. Could you please describe that to us?
Yeah, Klamax Lake, it's actually a mountain lake. It's placed in a location which is at 1,300 meters high, surrounded by mountains and volcanoes, and fed by 4 rivers that comes from these mountains. It's a very big lake. It's 52 kilometers long by 12. It's a relatively shallow lake. It's only an average of 3 meters of depth. So this is good. Why? The combination of these factors, because the shallow depth allow for a much better photosynthesis from the algae, which are much more directly exposed to the sun. The cold, the lake in the winter generally freezes over, so it's very, very cold, and actually this forces the algae to produce essential fatty acids, especially omega-3. In fact, the algae itself is a source of omega-3, which are usually lacking in other cyanobacteria like spirulina, for instance. And the lake itself is actually a kind of an ecological paradise, because there's only one city on the lake, which is at the southern bottom of the lake, so it does not discharge on the lake, but on a river that exits the lake. So there's no really emission of any type of significant polluting agents from, there's a few houses scattered around the lake, but very, very minimal, that do not have any impact on the quality of the water. Quality of the water is monitored regularly, and it's always found to be free of pesticides or any type of chemicals. Sometimes you find reports that the water is not good, but you have to from some agency, but that has to be made in the context of the fact that they are looking at the water from the point of view of drinkable water, and the fact that that water is not easily drinkable the way it is not because there's chemicals. There's no chemicals whatsoever. It's very pure. There's a very high concentration of phosphorus, and the phosphorus doesn't come from nitrates, or because there's no agriculture around the lake. There's no the only agricultural activity there is in the lake. It's cows. It's the I don't know. You said the zootechnic industry, or actually companies bring cows from even California to spend a couple months in Klamax Lake, around Klamax Lake, because the grass of this area is so nutritious that has the highest growing impact on the cows. They actually grow more than anywhere else.
And this is because of the volcanic ash, correct?
Yeah, because of the volcanic ash. All the area, as I mentioned some other time before, what is the other super characteristic of the lake is that 7,700 years ago, there was a volcano called Mount Mazama, which exploded, was one of the biggest explosions in history recorded. And of course, most of the volcanic material from the mountain fell down on Klamax Lake, which was underneath the mountain. And while in Mount Mazama, another lake was formed, which is called Crater Lake, which is an absolutely beautiful lake in a caldera, very deep, 700 meters deep, waters amazingly blue. and it's a national park in the U.S. And I advise anybody who can go visit it. It's quite an experience. So the lake itself, actually, although it's very shallow, has up to 10 meters deposits of minerals, and that's why one other characteristic of the algae is that it's the only living food that has 73 minerals in it. But again, the other thing that shows that the lake is actually a very pristine environment is the fact that it's the most important place for migratory birds in Western United States. When you go to the lake, the only people you see on the lake are pelicans, are grebes, which are specific ducks, very cute ducks that live in this lake, all sorts of other birds, and most of all, bald eagles, which are the symbol of the United States, are very sensitive to the environment. 30 years ago, they were almost extinct because of pollution. And Klamath Lake is actually one of the most important places for bald eagles in the United States, similar to Alaska.
Okay, Dr. Stefano, two other queries before I open up, because there's a lot of questions coming in. One is the issue, whenever this issue of AFA comes up, the issue of microcystin comes up. Right. And perhaps, let us hear it from you, a very quick answer to tell people when the issue of microcystin comes up.
Yeah, actually, hopefully I'm just publishing an article on this in a journal. I think the article is almost been accepted. It hasn't been easy because, of course, there's a lot of resistance from the toxicological environment. Microcystins are actually a very benign toxin. Their danger has been increased over measure by the toxicologists because, of course, they have a vested interest in creating, dangers. But essentially, the only study that was done, just a brief answer. The only study that was done with Klamath algae containing microcystins to test for the toxicity of microcystins showed that taking AFA with microcystins in it, which is not there usually, right? But just as a trial, to test what was happening if there were microcystins in the algae, they showed that up to 20 micrograms a day of microcystin taken as part of the alpha algae did not produce any toxic effect. That is neither chronic nor acute. Now, that is 20 times what is the current limit established for AFA, which is anyway respected. In fact, which is 1 microgram per gram, and every batch is tested for this. But just to keep in perspective this issue, whereas we, when we produce Klamath algae, are forced to maintain the limit of 1 microgram per gram. So with the idea that you take 2-3 grams and so 2-3 micrograms a day. In the meantime, in the United States, the Environmental Protection Agency has a standard for waters in the United States of 3 micrograms per liter. So you can take actually 6 or 9 micrograms from the water and nobody says anything, but 1 microgram per gram in FA then seems to become a problem sometimes. It's clearly just but
Dr. Stefano, can we assure everybody that every batch coming out of your facility is completely safe in terms of microcystin?
Or absolutely, every batch is tested for microcystins and proven to have that very low level, which not only is non-toxic, is actually beneficial. There have been studies that show that at that level, it's actually good for the liver. Keep in mind that as the great people of the past, like Paracelsus, said, there's nothing that is poisonous in itself. The poison is in the proportion. Okay, so something that could be poisonous when you take a lot of it or toxic, at low level may actually be curative. Right. So But yeah, every batch is tested, and every batch is guaranteed to be, within very, 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 very safe limits.
Right, and these are both European and US limits, right?
Yeah. We test both in the US, and we retest at a local university in Italy.
Okay. Now the other one is, this is a lake. There's only so much algae. Will there be enough to go around? Will we run out of supply?
Yeah. Well, okay. As I said, the lake is huge. It's 52 kilometers by 12. When it goes into bloom, the algae is so vital, so powerful that it quadruples every 15 minutes. You find a situation where the conditions are right, a situation where you see a lake, and in 15, 20 minutes you find like a meadow. It looks like a meadow, completely green. So we're talking about millions and millions of tons of biomass that can be harvested. So there is no really limit to what can be harvested from the lake. In fact, somebody at some point made a calculation, of course a rough calculation because nobody knows exactly how much there is, but a rough calculation that would say that you could actually feed 1 gram of the product to every single inhabitant of the planet for the next 100 years without any problem. And so the only problem that limits the supply is the ability to harvest, and we're working very hard on it. We're quadrupling our harvesting capacity this year, and so we're very confident that we'll have all the algae that is needed to make the 2 extracts, Clamine and Afamax.
Okay, now a question that I have from one of the listeners on this call. I would like to know the dosage for small children aged with disabilities.
Yeah, I would say that, again, it depends on what kind of small children we're talking about. If we're talking about the average small children that usually has quite a few health problems these days, I would still start with, half a dosage 2 times a day. That generally should be enough unless it's a very, very extreme problem, situation.
So even if they have viral infection or motor skill issues such as hearing, it's still that dosage?
Well, again, I would go, usually what I advise in situation of children which have very serious problems, I advise to take like half a scoop at least 3 times a day for a month or 2 until the situation is improved, and then you can go, you can slowly decrease to 3 and then possibly to 1 as a maintenance. But yeah, that would be my idea, my suggestion.
Okay, so half a scoop 3 times a day. Yeah. Now, is Klamax a good option for people with lymphedema, a condition that resulted from breast cancer, surgery, and treatments?
Yes, absolutely. Not only that, I can say that I've seen many cases of breast cancer radically improved by the use of the 2 extracts. One thing I'd like to say is that I get all these questions from people and distributors. Is the Klamax going to be good for this? Is Klamax going to be good for that? And I hear the most esoteric diseases that I haven't even heard before. The problem is, Klamax is a relatively new product as such. We have a lot of clinical studies and experience on the 2 extracts separately. So some of them are easy to say, yes, it's fine. But, the combination of 2 extracts, which, as I said, seems to be even more effective than the single extract by themselves, hasn't been fully tested yet. What I would say is that if you consider the fact that, as I was mentioning, is antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, anti-proliferative, immunological, neurological, stem cells, I mean, clearly it must be good for anything and everything. So instead of saying, is it going to be good for this, is going to be good for that, just use it and find out. I think you generally, because it has this 360 degrees on all the aspects of the human organism, you bound to good results.
Okay. Any experience of Klamax helping ALS that you have experienced?
What is it, ALS?
ALS.
Oh, yeah. Again, it's the same thing. I mean, we have, we have a lot of experience and very good results in any sort of neurodegenerative disease, including multiple sclerosis and, myasthenia gravis and so forth. So I don't recall right now any case of ALS, but I'm sure it's going to be very good because, again, through the stem cells, there's the regeneration of tissue. So it's bound to help also situations like ALS.
Okay, now just talk about Alzheimer's, and dementia, and Klamax.
Yeah, actually, on Alzheimer, I have 20 years experience of very good results with both Alzheimer and Parkinson. Radical improving, people going back, 10 years in their conditions in terms of degeneration very quickly, going back to do a normal life, recognizing people, recovering memory. I mean, it's quite actually amazing the speed in which you get results in these areas. And on this, we're actually doing now studies. We just finished a study on dementia, very, very extreme case, was done in Rome, with people, 80 plus people who were really on the verge of just waiting to die. And in spite of the extreme case, there were some very good results and improvements, which we're now analyzing statistically. And I just want to mention this. We're actually publishing an article soon with the National Research Center of Italy, which is the most important governmental institution for research, where they found that the clamine extracts, which is the main component of Klamax, not only inhibits the formation, very significantly, the formation of beta-amyloid substance, which, as you know, is the main or one of the main factors of the progression of Alzheimer's disease. Not only it does that, it reduces about 70% the formation of beta-amyloid. But what was most amazing in this study, which will be published in the next few months, hopefully, is that whatever beta-amyloid is produced loses its toxicity. It becomes non-toxic, non-harmful. It doesn't do any damage. So that is an amazing result that the researchers themselves were quite very impressed by this, and we should publish soon.
Okay. There are a couple of things about packaging, inconvenient. We are moving to sachet. We're working on it. We're trying to go as fast as possible because it's easier to dispense, easier to carry. So sachets come. Now, I want to share one testimonial. It's good evening. This is not a question, but testimonial. I have a customer who has shingles. She has seen amazing results with pain reduction within 12 hours of taking her first dosage of Klamax. Right. She's taking one full scoop twice a day, and the results are nothing short of amazing. Yeah. I hope to have a personal testimonials to share with our iGillen team very soon. This is from Eli Lucia. Right. We see a lot of testimonials like this on Facebook, and I hear a lot myself, and many have gone to Dr. Stefano. So keep those testimonials coming, because ultimately we are about people helping people.
That's an amazing testimonial, and again, it's due to what I said is this 360 degrees activities on health, and especially the immune system. In this case, because shingles is a viral infection, and there's very, very good results on all sorts of viral infection, thanks to the combination of all the activities, but especially in this case, a very, very powerful modulation of the immune system.
Okay, could you talk about Klamax and pain relief, Dr. Stefano?
Yeah, that's actually another very interesting thing, because I've always noticed, without really being able to explain, this very, very rapid and very powerful activity on pain reduction. In fact, pain disappearance. And of course, I've always thought that this could be related to mainly the phycocyanins and the anti-inflammatory, because of course when you do the anti-inflammatory, very powerful anti-inflammatory activity, you reduce inflammation, and so you reduce pain, which is one of the 4 elements of inflammation. However, I was quite amazed by the fact that sometimes I got these very, very impressive results on pain just by giving some Clamine under the tongue. And I couldn't understand exactly what, I thought, clearly pain is a neurological phenomenon. It's involved in the nervous system. Clamine works so deeply on the nervous system that, maybe that's the way it is, it works. And actually recently, a couple of years ago, there was a study that actually established that phenylethylamine, it's got a very powerful analgesic activity. And again, it does it mostly through intervening on the nervous system. So yes, it is very remarkable. And again, putting it together, of course, increases the anti-pain activity, because you have both the analgesic activity on the nervous system and the anti-inflammatory activity of the phycocyanins, which I just want to say something on this very quickly. We actually have got the results of these 3-year studies done on phycocyanins at the University of Urbino on a PhD program. They did a research on our phycocyanins. And one of the things they reported, they were amazed by the fact that these phycocyanins were actually very active at anti-inflammatory level at the picomolar level, that is already at billionth of a gram, which means whatever, when you take the Klamax, whatever content of phycocyanin is there, it's actually, there's many, billions of billionth of a gram. So there's enough to have a very powerful activity on all the body, because of course, when you take a product, it distributes through the body, so it's important the concentration. But when you have a product that is already active at the picomolar level, then you're sure that picomolars, very small quantities at least, go throughout the body to do their anti-inflammatory activity.
Okay. Dr. Stefano, one last question before I go back to Rina. How would you describe Klamax to somebody, or Klamax to somebody in 30 seconds or 1 minute?
Yeah, I would say that it's a combination of 2 extracts that puts together molecules that have an activity, antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, anti-proliferative on one side, and neurological, immunological on the other side. And together, they have a very powerful activity on both somatic and neural stem cells. The combination of all these factors in one product makes it a very powerful product for any type of health issue, health problems, or energy problems that you might have. That would be my very quick reply on how to.
I'm working with Dr. Stefano on some things. We already updated the website as of today. In a week or so, we'll have more information, including an elevator pitch that you're asking for. So we are 2 minutes to 10 o'clock. Let me pass this call back to Rina. Rina, please also tell them more for evening going on.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Dr. Rajan, for asking the questions that are out in the field. I know you get a ton of them, and we're just so grateful that you're there with us. Dr. Scoglio, thank you so much for the clarification. It's not often we get to hear from a Nobel Prize nominated scientist for medicine, because that only call conferences. So it's an honor that you take time out of your sleep, to join us, and the research that and work that you guys both do make Galen one of the most innovative biotech companies out there. And a massive thank you for the opportunity that we all have to help other people. Before I get to the promotion, I just want to say on that note, the results and experiences will vary. So please do not compare results with other people, and we're going to get different effects. So just be consistent, positive. Know that it's working on a cellular level. And for retail customers, we have a 90-day money-back guarantee. That's incredible. So for our spring promotion, we have a promo every month. I know we were just talking about Klamax, but our promo for April is, now get your pens, and promo number 1 is when you sponsor a gold distributor that orders 10 bottles of Emulin, you'll get 50% more business volume. Okay, so instead of 600 business volume, you're going to get, instead of 400 business volume, you're going to get 600 business volume. And then for the new distributor, so if you're new on this call and you haven't signed up yet, you will get an additional 2 free of Emulin. Okay, so for promotion number 2, if you sponsor a platinum distributor, that's 20 bottles of Emulin, and trust me, they will go flying out of your cabinets. You'll get 50% more business volume as well. So instead of 800 business volume, you're going to get 1,200 business volume. And for the new distributor that signs up, you're on top of the 20 bottles that you're coming in at, you're also going to get 5 free bottles of Emulin each. That's amazing. So, we're really excited about this because the true reward in this business with iGalen is really seeing people getting their health back, getting their life back, performing better at work, having better relationships, obviously better sex with Klamax now, seeing friends and family come out of chronic pain, walking without their walkers. Like I'm telling you guys, this is not a magic pill or potion or elixir, but it's helping so many people. So if you can imagine sharing this with everyone, earning extra income, having tax write-offs on top of it, it's true. And, thank you, Jacqueline, as well, our administrator extraordinaire, for putting these calls together. Thank you all for being on this call and for spreading the word. For our guests, please get back to the person that invited you. Don't hesitate to come on board. There's so many people looking for this product out there, this opportunity, and you want to make sure that they hear it from you first. So take care until our next call, which is going to happen April 30th. So please mark your calendars, April 30th, same time. And with that being said, good morning, good evening, and good night, everyone. Thank you.